Hey, it's a great pleasure to host you, Alexander, and have a chance to talk with you. And for the benefit of our readers and listeners, this is a real joy to get some time with you. So, you've had some amazing experiences, and I guess one that our readers would be very interested to hear a little bit about is as a founder of Hillsong Young and Free. So could you kind of give us the background on who you are and then kind of morph into what was it like seeing that from the start and walking through that whole whole dynamic that Hillsong Young and Free became?
Yeah, for sure. Well, first, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here today. And yeah, so what most people don't realize, especially the moment I open my mouth, is if they do know me for Hillsong, is they're like, "You don't sound very Australian," and that is because I am not. My friends have dubbed me though, because I lived there for 14 years, that my accent is a little messy, and my some of my friends dubbed me as false Australian. So
Well,
that
that's
is
good.
a title that I happily wear. But yeah, honestly, the coolest part about that story to me as a whole is growing up in North Idaho. When I was 17, I think had been playing guitar in the local worship band, and I was going into my senior year, year 12, and my youth pastor at the time asked me to take over the youth worship band. And he
Wow.
played me a DVD of Hillsong United from the United We Stand record, and it was about them getting started. And the testimony in that video is pretty much that they weren't anybody special. They weren't anyone of any specific renown, except that they were, youth, high school kids that loved God and loved serving, and something was birthed out of that. And I'm sitting there watching this with my kind of the band, the worship band was my best friends, and we're sitting there watching it and inspired to be like, hey, we could do something too. It doesn't matter that we're from Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and there's
Yeah,
30 kids at youth group. Like we could do something.
I love that.
And fast forward, so I'm 17. Fast forward, maybe 4 years later, I've lived in Australia a few years now. I moved to Sydney. I've done their Bible college, and there's this kind of call. I was serving in the youth ministry. I was a youth leader, and for no other reason than to serve our youth ministry. And they kind of put a call out to write songs for our youth ministry. There'd been a number of years since United had moved on, and they weren't the youth band anymore.
Right.
And um, and so we were just trying to figure it out. We spent about a year writing songs that sounded like B-side Hillsong tracks, and just because it's what we grew up listening to. It's kind of what you regurgitate what you've experienced, what you've enjoyed. And along the way, we found something a little bit special and a little bit unique. And I often refer to even the start of Young and Free of like the craziest intersection of technology and pop music being like kind of dance and relatable to and applicable to a church setting. And I just consider us very lucky and blessed to have been around for that intersection. But we just made music about loving Jesus, and it may not have been the deepest thing you've ever heard or the most profound revelation, but we loved God and we wanted to express it. And yeah, so that was kind of that. It was the most. It's crazy that was, I think, 12 or 13 years ago now that was starting. And we traveled the world, and I got to do that with my very best friends, and it was unbelievable. And yeah, more than anything, I think the thing today, just to give it a brief summary, is so cool now to know that we really were able to somehow be the people. Somehow God chose us to be the people to be a voice for that sort of generation, that voice of praise, that voice of expressive, out of yourself, outward expression of worship. And it's funny. I'm tangenting now, Scott. I'm sorry, but if a lot of people who grow up in church or have served, and oftentimes, the fast songs are treated like they're treated like warm up or a have a go, or the praising, the clapping, the dancing is for the youth and the youth alone, and all that. And to some extent, I probably believed that at certain points of my ministry experience, was like, oh, I want to graduate to leading the and
Ah,
writing the weighty worship song, the one that's got people crying and on their face, and in the intimacy with God. And I've kind of, I think, matured and grown into believing that we don't graduate from the call to praise. We laugh about the fact that because one time it talks about David dancing before the Lord. One time he was naked. That we can't dance before the Lord because we dance like David. It's naked. Apologies to the listeners if saying naked is a scandal. But all throughout the Psalms, David dances before the Lord, and I truly believe that there is something that only outward expressive praise can unlock in you, in the room, in our connection with God. And I all that to say is just I kind of laugh about, we were young and free. We were known for writing these high energy songs, and me now in my mid 30s, I am just as, if not probably more passionate about writing songs that bring people out of ourselves to praise God with all they got. And it's been an honor to be a person that has got to write songs like that for the church for this long.
well, that's that's really interesting insight. And I was fortunate to be at quite a few Young and Free concerts, and all you have to do is watch the crowd, right? You watch how
Mm,
the Holy Spirit used your music in the crowd, and it was impactful, very impactful.
mm,
And of course, we see Elevation today grasping that same feel and how that's impacted the church, the Big C church.
yeah.
So what an amazing experience you had. I have a interesting question. So when you told your parents you want to go to Hillsong College at 19, what'd they say?
Well, I think I sold it well. I said, Mom, I'm just gonna go 6 months, maybe a year. Don't even worry about it.
I'll be right
And
back.
I'll be right back. You won't even notice. It's funny. She tells the story now that she's just like, I knew that moment he was never coming home, which is heartbreaking.
Yeah.
But here I am. She lives 20 minutes down the road now. We're back together. Yeah. But yeah, I actually am really grateful that my parents really always encouraged creativity in the home. And in fact, most of the time they were putting us in music lessons that I had no interest in being in.
Yeah.
But then eventually, yeah, I fell in love with music, and really it was music in the first place I got to outwork that passion was in church, and not necessarily a place that I at 15 to 17 really realized that I could do anything significant. It was like, oh, I'll always want to serve in my church, but I don't know how Hillsong. Literally, I was like, Hillsong United already exists. Why would we need more cool,
Hmm.
worship music that relates to people who have a different palette or interest of different genres and what have you. And yeah, so I mean, they always push me, always encourage me to go into that space.
That's awesome. Good for them. And obviously, God was behind that in many ways, obviously. I love your sound. Our listeners love your sound. We're playing a number of your songs in our rotation on Worship Road Radio right now. Um, and there's something very real that comes through on your songs that I love. Uh, but I do have a question about one. You and I both share a background of having lived in Idaho. And your song, Idaho, of course, got my attention when it came out. In that song, it says, I was only 15 and I had to grow up. Most of everything I've read about you, Alexander, is when you were 17 and started in the worship band. So I'm just going to ask you, what happened when you were 15 that you're referring to in this song?
Yeah, my parents split up when I was 15, and out of respect to them, I won't go too much into the story of that sort of what happened, if you will. But there were the fallout of that sort of meant my mom was diagnosed with cancer at the
Oh
same
gosh,
time, and
you did have to grow
yeah,
up fast, didn't you?
yeah, and I have two little brothers who I'm 4 and 6 years older than them, and so they were quite young and sort of just needing to step up and help mom out. And it was a crazy, briefly, it was a very crazy story of being in Idaho. We kind of went back to California for mom to get treatment, and she dropped us off at grandma's house
Yeah.
in California and then went to another state to get specialized treatment. And then we went back to Idaho and kind of needing to step into sort of somewhat of a father figure to my brothers from that age in just helping and supporting our mom. And the as it goes, I'm going into my sophomore year of high school, and you getting back to school. This was a lot of this kind of happened during that summer, and we get back to school, and it was like we went from being children to trying to be adults, but at least in my friend group in that year. And there's drinking, there's the interests have changed
Yeah.
very quickly, and a whirlwind of a 15-year-old of everything I've been through. And I would by no means say I ever ran away from God by any stretch of the term, but it was absolutely nothing tangibly real as what you would call a relationship between me and God. It was information. And I showed up to a youth conference um, that was being held in Post Falls, Idaho, for the Idaho listeners.
Yeah.
And it was all the churches together, and they were doing Hillsong United songs. It was the first time I ever heard worship music that I felt was for me, and written for me, sounded like something for me. And at the end of the first night, they do an altar call. And God bless the churches that I grew up in. So amazing in so many ways, but they didn't do altar calls.
Oh,
I don't recall a single person giving their life to Jesus in a communal setting of us all being together as the church. And I raced down the front. I was
hmm.
like, I cannot do this alone. And so I don't really consider the part about having to grow up the moment that I went through all the hard times. I only say all that because I think the moment that I grew up, had to grow up, was in that maturing of the relationship with Jesus, of beginning my relationship with God truly. And yeah, it was as the song says, it was a real rubber hit the road moment. I felt a little bit of, I've been in church my whole life. Everybody knows me. Everybody knows blah 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 blah. I feel silly running down to the front, and I was just compelled that I had to.
Love that.
And yeah,
I'm sure a lot of our readers and listeners are in their own rubber meets the road moment in their life, and that's a real inspiration to them. And I really appreciate you sharing that. Um, so I read one interview where you talked about writing for contemporary music's great, even if you have to ruffle some feathers. Uh, expound on that. I like what you're saying, I think, but tell me what you mean.
that's is amazing because I have no memory of saying that. So let me dig into the recesses of my mind as to see why. I would say I imagine what I meant by that statement is um, uh, I I like to think of it. And I think I'll say this. I'll rewind a little bit. Is my obviously my background now comes from also Idaho, but also the Hillsong Camp. And then anybody who knows too much about the Hillsong Camp knows that there were quite a few incredible writers
Sure.
in that world, and people who were better, much better than me. And I am unbelievably grateful for the many years of being a little fish in a big pond. If you want to be a songwriter or a musician or a creative of any kind, being a small fish in a big pond is always a good thing for you if you're up for it, if you're up for the challenge. And so I'm really grateful for all those years. And kind of what you learn in all that is you got to break some boxes in order to have something sort of really break through. And I don't say that for to break boxes for destruction's sake. I say break boxes to offer something new.
Hmm.
Um, and I do adhere to, and the language of our church was always within the scriptures that behold, I am doing a new thing, and that like God wants to do the new thing. And so I like I said, I probably said I love writing music that I like to listen to. I like being inspired by something that's broken a box here, and how could I apply that? How could I mold it? How could I shape it to this? And so I guess my encouragement to any listener is whether it's songwriting or whatever it may be, the thing that you already know, the box that you already know that exists. Someone else has done it. And we, especially as the church, we don't need another Alex Pappas. We don't need another Scott. We need a you. We need you to be exactly who God has created you to be. And so just go for it and smash a few things along the way. And people might tell you along the way, hey, it doesn't work, or it can't work, or it couldn't be this way. And perhaps sometimes they're right, but you only need to be right once along the way to make a big impact.
Well, it's so true, and clearly, Young and Free was an example of that, no doubt. And it did. It touched people in ways that others didn't. So, tell us what's around the corner. Are you going to tour anytime soon? Any idea that tour in Canada as well? Give us a vision of what's around the corner.
Well, Scott, I don't want to speak too soon because it's not confirmed, but I have been having a few conversations about Canada specifically.
Nice.
So hopefully, truthfully, Canada was Young and Free's favorite place to tour. I don't know why more people don't tour across Canada, but we had it on a rotation. We were there every other year because it was just the people, the place, everything is something really, really special to our hearts and to mine. And so I am very much hoping to be back. Hoping to be back with a bit of new music. I've just started releasing what is really 3 years in the making, and I won't bore you with the details of how I arrived here in Tyler. We can get into that more if we want to, but releasing worship music again. That when I started my solo artistry, it was in the landscape that Hillsong Young and Free and Hillsong Worship. I was doing that, and so this was just another outlet of creativity with songs like Idaho that were
Right.
Christian in nature, but not specifically made for the church. Songs to be sung, as I called it then, was Monday music. Songs that I hoped would minister to your Mondays, and so I released those two projects, and then in the last 3 years, the landscape of my life, the landscape of my church, and so many things had changed, and felt really called. The Lord gave me a word called a word just, and that word was Sunday. And stepping back into, I believe, what I'm called to do in making songs for the church, for the bride. And so I released the first single of the project a couple weeks ago called "Everything with Breath," a part of a greater project called Sunday Volume One. And so songs of praise, songs of faith, songs of joy that I hope are going to be as fun and enjoyable to listen to as things maybe people have experienced in the past.
I love that. And we certainly are playing everything with breath. Really like it. So, can you give us a teaser on when we can expect the next releases?
Um, I believe where the next thing's going to be coming out early February. The next song, it's a toss up. If it's between two songs, I can give this away. It's not kill. It's not gonna. No one. My management's not gonna kill me for this. It's either a song called
Blame me.
"Hands Up" or a song called "Always Been Jesus."
Oh,
Both songs, I'm really. You'll hear eventually, one way or
cool.
another. And that's coming out early Feb. The whole project should be out sometime in April. So really, really, really excited about it. Yeah, as I said, it's kind of 3 years in the making, 3 years in the refining, 3 years in the fire, to put it mildly. And I hope what's coming from that will really bless and minister people in their walk as it has mine.
That's exciting. That's fantastic. So my wish list is tour, an Alex Pappas tour in Canada, and an Alex Pappas live album someday. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
That's the plan. That's the
Cool.
long-term plan. Yes,
Nice.
sir.
Nice. Hey, listen, thanks for your time. I know that our listeners and our readers are going to just really be blessed by seeing the insight and what you've shared. And you've got a lot of fans here in Canada. So we hope to follow you for a long time to come.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you very much for having me. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.